Good morning, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about the Ferrari 458 versus the McLaren MP4-12C.
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan and this is my garage, and this is our McLaren MP4-12C, which is for sale through our dealership NG Supercars. And you may be wondering, why are we talking about the Ferrari 458 when we got this McLaren MP4-12C in front of me? Well, that's because when this came out, this was meant to be a direct competitor of the Ferrari 458. So we're going to talk about the two different cars, and if you didn't know it, I owned a Ferrari 458 for about 3 years, and I absolutely love that car. I mean, full disclosure, I am a die-hard Ferrari fan. So what does a die-hard Ferrari fan think of the McLaren? Well, let's find out. Before we get into it real quick, if you want to support us, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And of course, you can go visit normalguysupercar.com. There you can buy parts and services for your car, so go check it out. We appreciate that very much, and thank you so much for the support. So a quick story before we get into it. So back in the early 2010, 2011 time frame, when this car came out, I fell in love with it. I thought, this is the car of my dreams, and I was not a Ferrari fan at the time, or I should say, I wasn't really all that into Ferraris. I thought they're a bit of a pompous supercar that's meant for, hoity-toity rich people. And to me, this came out and I thought, this is the high-tech, high-performance solution to kick Ferrari's ass. And in a way, it kind of is. I actually went out to a track and did one of those driver experiences, and I purposely chose to drive the MP4-12C and the Ferrari 458 because I thought, this is my dream car, but everyone says the Ferrari is the car. So I wanted to experience a Ferrari. I'd never driven a Ferrari at that point in time. And that experience actually made me fall in love with the Ferrari 458. And that's the reason I wanted to buy a 458 and chose it, because I felt like that was a better car and it was a better driver's experience. Well, what is my opinion 10 years later? Let's talk about it. We're gonna take it out for a drive and talk about the car during the drive. But before we get into the drive, I just want to talk about some of the exterior notes about the 12C versus the 458, because, well, here's the thing about appearances is it's kind of subjective, although most people agree about certain things. I honestly can't say that whether this car is better looking than the Ferrari 458 or not. That's going to be up to you. I think this is a stunning car, certainly in this color. This color is absolutely incredible. But I have to say, the Ferrari 458 is just as stunning a car. It is a little bit of a different look and has a different appearance to it, and I think maybe it's a little bit more classic, and this is a little bit more modern styling. But of course, there's some other things to consider, like, you've got the doors that everyone loves, the billionaire doors, which, yes, this is a show pleaser. You pull up and you got the doors that go up. This is actually one of the things it's a hit and miss, because as you can see, that door sticks out quite a ways from the car. So if you pull into a parking spot and someone pulls their car up right next to you, you are not getting out that door. In fact, you can see there's not a whole lot of room between this side of the car and the wall. And so I have to be very careful if the passenger opens this door. Basically, you can't really open it all the way, otherwise you'll start hitting stuff or hitting the wall. So they're both good and bad, and I understand the point is to make it so that they can clear the curb. You don't have to worry about curbs, which is great. It's one extra thing that makes the car unique and cool. And so if you're into that, yes, you can now say, I have the doors of a billionaire.
A f***ing car whose doors open like this. Not like this. Not like this. These are not the doors of a billionaire, Richard. F*** you.
And of course, like I said, this is more of the modern car versus the traditional supercar. So this has active aero, it has twin turbos, and those sorts of modern features, and it has a very high-tech traction control system, which we'll show while we're driving. It's good and bad. It makes it so that you're not going to kill yourself, but at the same time, it does intervene and change the characteristics of driving the cars. Enough about all this. Let's get in the car and go drive it and talk about the two different cars. So one thing about the butterfly doors is getting in and out is substantially more difficult in the McLaren than it is in the Ferrari, especially if you're not very nimble. And to be fair, if you're trying to have a hot date and she's wearing a skirt, yeah, this presents some problems, just, fair warning. Okay. Yeah, and this is actually another problem about the early McLarens. They did not have the soft close, so you really got to slam that door. All right, let's get this party started. One nice thing about the McLaren has, again, more modern things than the Ferrari 458, so we have a touch screen, and we actually have a key fob versus inserting a key. The Ferrari, you do have to put in a key, turn it, and then push a button. This one, you just hop in and push a button. Sometimes you gotta push it twice.
K40 scan active.
Okay. Now you gotta push it 3 times. There it goes. 3rd time's a charm. All right. That's one of the weird things about this car. It has some quirks that are kind of hard to figure out and don't always make sense. It's almost like they're trying to think of things too much for you. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, we know how to solve this problem for you. Don't think. Versus the interior of the 458 is extremely analog. There's only 2 digital displays. They're not touch screens, but the interface is actually, well, it's pretty terrible. Of course, the interface in this is, it's a little wonky. I mean, operating the radio and all that stuff is just a little, you know, it takes some weirdness to it, but it's not terrible. Otherwise, the interior of this is pretty clean. You've got this big center console bridge. It does kind of take up some of the interior volume a little bit, but otherwise it's kind of comparable. You can actually fit reasonably tall people in both of these cars. Now, one difference between the 2 cars is, and this is one of those things that you either love or hate, this one has the paddles on the wheel, so they move with the wheel. Ferrari and Lamborghini, they have the pedals on the column, so they never move. I personally prefer it on the column. I'm not gonna say which one's better or worse. I just think that the way I like it is they're always in the same place. I know exactly where they are. So even if I'm turning or whatever, I know the pedal's in the same place. This one, if you move your hands for any reason, it makes it harder to drive the car because now the pedals aren't where they need to be. They're potentially somewhere else. Now right now we have it in normal mode and normal everything. So let's turn on the active button and we turned on the exhaust. Well, we turned the performance into track mode, so that makes it so the exhaust opens up, makes it sound a little cooler, but we still have handling in normal mode. So one thing about both these cars, they have active suspension and you change the modes and it really does make a honest to God difference in how the car feels and behaves. So in sport mode, both the cars get tightened up a little bit. In track mode in the McLaren, then they call it race mode in the Ferrari, it is stiff. Very stiff to the point where it's almost uncomfortable. Now, of course, here's the big difference in the way the power comes on is this is a turbo car. So the power is, it's not quite as linear and it's got that oomph that comes in. So it starts off and then kind of gives you that push. I have to say it's exciting, but it is a little bit of lag. It's not bad. It's not like the old turbo cars where, you know, it'd take like a second or a half a second. It comes on pretty instantaneous. You know, as soon as you push the pedal, this is a bit over dramatizing it, but we're in 6th gear going about the speed limit. I put the pedal to the floor and it takes a moment. It takes a moment. But, you know, obviously a lower gear, we go down and whoa. You can see it takes, you know, if I go, all right, ready, and pedal. So it's like it goes and then goes again once the turbos spin up. So it's still pretty impressive. Both the cars have dual clutch transmissions. They both shift pretty much flawlessly. Speaking of the transmissions, that is one of the things that people always will bring up, and they're for sure gonna bring it up in the comments of this video, is the transmission of the McLaren. They're like, oh my God, the transmission of these cars blow up. They always blow up. I mean, look, they have a bad reputation because a few of them did have issues with the transmissions. It was pretty common when the car first came out, so much so that basically for a while there you couldn't even get a transmission for the car. They were just gone because they were all being, you know, done on warranty. 458 actually had transmission issues too when it first came out, and they still are known for having some bad transmission problems. Both of them, if the transmission goes out, it's extraordinarily expensive. We're talking to the tune of like $30,000 to $40,000 to have a dealership take care of it. Well, I'm gonna say this, I don't think it's like a 100% guaranteed thing in either car, so I'm gonna call that a wash. Either way, both can have transmission issues. All right, so we are turning on to what I consider my bumpy road test. Okay, so it's this one, we're gonna keep it in normal mode for a second here. This road is extremely rough, and it's where I like to take cars to just kind of say, how does their suspension handle a very rough road? You know, oh right, here's a big one, and pretty smooth. I mean, well, you know, that one's a little rough, a little bit rough. It's not the smoothest. You know, if we put it into sport, it's gonna be a little, oh my gosh, way bouncier, and that is not comfortable at all. Now keep in mind, we have a very rigid carbon fiber monocoque chassis versus a full chassis like in the Ferraris. So, you know, okay, here we go. And it's time to open up. Here we go. Now right there is part of my problem with the car. It is super fast, but it has a really hyperactive traction control. So we were spinning super hard. Now, it's good and bad. I could have easily spun off the road right there, but the traction control was totally saving my ass. The problem is it kicks in so aggressively that you could hear the engine kind of like stuttering and having a hard time. But all right, we're in the twisty portion of this, and we have it in sport mode and track power. So we got all the power, a little bit of traction control to make sure I don't die because I'm not a professional. The precision of the steering is astounding. Both cars, super precise, super good handling. The one thing is this one's a little bit numb. You just don't get that feedback. You know, if you hit stuff on the road, it doesn't kind of let you know that you're hitting stuff. It's not bad, it's not my favorite. And I think that's really the big distinguishing difference between the two cars. Both of them, amazing performance. Arguably, this one is a faster performing car. But the 458, in my opinion, is a bit more of a driver's car. It takes a bit more finesse, takes a bit more driver involvement. God, this is so fast. And I think that's one of the other things. You can hear the sound. It's not the greatest. It's good. It is a very good sound. You get all the turbo noises, the whooshes and blow off valves and psh, you know, all that stuff, which is, it's entertaining. But you don't have that naturally aspirated high-pitched wail that you can get out of the 458. But to be fair, the factory exhaust in the 458 is lacking in itself. So I'm gonna say honestly, both cars from the factory, the exhaust kind of sucks. It's not what you really want out of a supercar. You want more. You're gonna wanna replace the exhaust, let's just be real. So when these came out, they were both about the same price, kind of in the 200 to 250 range, really well optioned. You're getting closer to 300. How did they fare in the long run? Well, today these cars, the McLarens, I think mostly because of the bad reliability reputation, which it may not be totally founded. I think it's kind of a little bit off. Well, these things are hovering in the like 100 to 160 range, you know, with most of them probably being about 125. Ferrari 458s are at like 225 to 260 for the coupes. So you're talking double the price. The current Ferrari 458 market is twice the price of the McLarens. Now, a lot of that came in the last 6 to 12 months. The Ferraris went up about $50,000 in value, massive increase in price. But that just shows you the Ferrari brand and prestige carries with it a lot of weight. So obviously, if you had bought these brand new, you're taking a bath. If you bought the Ferrari 458 new, you're probably doing pretty good. Now, okay, we're gonna go back to the reliability thing. Yeah, these things got a bad reputation for being unreliable and they have all these problems. Both cars have known issues, and here's the nice thing. They've both been around for over a decade, so the issues are kind of getting well documented. You know, this thing has like the computer screens right here go out. It has issues with the wing. It has issues with transmission. Yes, there are some that have that. Rear tail lights go out, stupid things like that. Ferrari 458, guaranteed to have sticky buttons. The headliner is going to fall, the leather is going to stretch and pull, all those sorts of things. They just happen. So the good news is none of these are really catastrophic, oh my God, like get rid of it kind of problems. Here we go again. I mean, that's the thing. These cars just bring a smile to your face. Any of them, they're just epically fast, epically fun cars. I'm basically to say, yes, the 458 probably overall is more reliable, but both of them are going to need some maintenance. They're going to need some things to get fixed. The big problem is you can get Ferrari parts pretty easily. There is a huge aftermarket for the Ferrari parts as well. So not only can you get OE parts, you can get aftermarket parts. Ferrari stuff's just been around forever. There's lots of companies to choose from. You don't have to necessarily go directly to Ferrari. You can buy parts from Ricambi, Scuderia Parts, Euro Spares. All sorts of companies are making parts for these cars and selling the parts for the Ferraris. It's hard to get McLaren parts. You pretty much have the McLaren dealerships or salvage yards. So yeah, you can get parts for these cars at Fur Parts and other salvage places, you know, exotic car recycling or whatever, but it's harder to obtain. But the good news is now the documentation about some of these parts and some of these problems is starting to become more pronounced. You can actually read about it and learn about it. So I think the DIY market is starting to catch up to these cars, and that's really going to help. So the big question is, if you are on the market, and let's say you're like me and you dreamed of both of these cars and you thought, I want one of those two cars and I'm in a position now where I can afford it. Well, is this car worth it? Is the risk of the maintenance worth the lower price tag? I think from a performance perspective, this is the better deal. There's no way you can't argue against that, because this is a faster car and it's going to be cheaper. Even if the transmission grenades twice, you're still paying less than a Ferrari 458. Think about that for a second. Better performance, and it's half the price. That's a huge thing to argue. And I'm going to say that I think these are near the bottom of the depreciation curve, because there's no way these things are going to go in half again. It's just not. There's no way that this car is suddenly going to be worth $50,000. Give me a break. And they have good brakes, by the way. It's funny because I'm pulled up next to two minis, so it's like, the British are coming. We need to start ringing a bell. One if by land, two if by sea. Well, it's one.
The British are coming, the British are coming.
All right, so we're gonna take it out of track, quiet it up a little bit, put it back into normal. Now there is a little bit more wind noise I've noticed in this car than there are in the Ferraris. It's just slightly more noisy. It's almost insignificant, not something you're really going to care about. Oh yeah, you know, the cool Active Aero, it's kind of fun when you look back and you see the big windbreak stand up when you're on the brakes. Those things are kind of neat. I mean, a little bit of like a party trick, but it's cool, you know, like, oh, my wing, it's moving. It's pretty cool. So speaking of performance, what are the hard numbers? 12C has a 3.8 liter twin turbo engine producing about 600 horsepower at like 7,200 RPMs and about 460 foot-pounds of torque. The Ferrari 458 has a 4.5 liter spinning at 9,000 RPMs. The red line, this is 8,500, but it only produces 560 horsepower and only about 400 foot-pounds of torque. This car is about 200 pounds lighter than the 458, mostly because it's all carbon fiber. So 0-60 in the 458 is like considered to be something like 3.1, and this is considered to be like 2.9. Quarter mile times are both going to be in the low 11s or 10 seconds range. So they're pretty comparable. You know, they're very similar performance specs on paper. It is obviously a little bit different to experience the way that they do it. So this one with the turbos has a totally different feel and vibe to it. The 458 has a bit more responsiveness and gives you some more feeling. But clearly, they're both crazy fast, amazing performance cars. So again, what it really comes down to is I think these have gotten to the price point where if you dreamed of it like you did me, even if you take the risk that maybe it's going to have some issues, I think it's worth the price. I think you just factor that in. You know, it's kind of like some of the older Ferraris. You buy a 355 knowing you're going to have to pull the engine every 5 years. You just factor that in. You say, okay, I got to save up, and every 5 years I'm going to spend a large chunk of money, 10 to 20 grand or whatever. I think for this car, you just say, I'm going to buy this car to be cheaper, but I'm going to set aside some money because, you know, it could have some weird, wonky things, and unfortunately, there's just not the huge aftermarket capability of getting it fixed. You know, the IndyCar dealers or IndyCar shops aren't able to fix these cars as easily, partly because they have their own proprietary computers, and that system costs a crap load of money to get. You can drive this totally civilized, just like the 458. Again, the transmissions feel almost identical, very, very quick, super sharp shifts, exactly what you expect out of a modern DCT. It even behaves pleasantly at slow speeds. You don't have the old school single clutch herky-jerky. If you were on the market for either car, I think you're not going to be disappointed. I would say if you're looking for a better bargain, the McLaren is it. I think if you're anticipating that the Ferraris are going to hold their value and continue to probably go up in value, it's probably a better bet long-term financially. But these aren't rational cars. You're not making a completely rational decision. This is about having fun, and are you going to have basically as much fun for half the price? I think you are. So basically, I'm saying I think the McLaren could be one of the great performance bargains that you can buy right now. I think these are undervalued. I think they're going to start going up in value, especially as more and more people start to DIY them and we start to figure out the computers and stuff. So I think that's the big thing, is as aftermarket computers start to come out that allow us to actually work on these cars and troubleshoot them easier, these are going to become more desirable, and people are going to realize they're not as scary as it seems. And even if you do grenade a transmission, you can go buy a used transmission for substantially less than $35,000 and get those installed. So I feel like the worst case scenario that everyone's so scared about in these cars isn't necessarily founded, and they're probably not as bad as you think. I mean, this car has 21,000 miles on it. So according to the internet, these things go through transmissions every 2,000 miles, which means this thing would have gone through 10 transmissions already. No one on earth would have ever paid for that. There's no way. So maybe it did grenade a transmission. I don't know. Maybe even 2 transmissions. Seems unlikely. Seems improbable. That still means it's less than the cost of a 458 right now, even if it does that. And I think that's really improbable. I actually suspect these cars appeal to a lot of younger people. I think a lot of people went out and abused the hell out of these things and did donuts and dumb shit with them because, woohoo, I got 600 horsepower. That's how you grenade a transmission pretty easily. There you have it. I am a Ferrari fan, and I'm still a Ferrari fan. And honestly, I still prefer the Ferrari. And I think the 458 is the greatest car ever made. But I think this could be one of the best bargains today. And with that, please like, share, and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and of course, go visit normalguysupercar.com. We do appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Honestly, it does help us out. And of course, you can go check out our inventory at ngsupercars.com. And if you see a car that you'd like to make an offer on, email us sales@ngsupercars.com. Or if you want to sell your car to us, email us, give us the information, VIN, pictures, and all the details, and we can make an offer and potentially buy it from you. That's going to do it for this video. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to be doing a lot of cool car stuff, so you're going to want to stay tuned. It's going to be sweet.